For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. Welcome back to the Dominion Podcast, episode 28. I am I think I'm going to be the alpha host today. I've just been doing such a good job. I think I need a promotion.
I didn't know it was up for grabs. I thought that was like an established position.
No, I just unilaterally promoted myself.
That's an alpha move.
Exactly. See, you know it's what. And that was Alex talking there. So yeah, it's me, Jeremy Boyd, and I'm here with
Alex, the dejected former alpha.
Oh yeah, the new beta, and of course,
and just the quite content. Delta, gamma, somewhere down below the Greek alpha. Guys, we need more bureaucracy. That's the problem. The system's breaking down.
That's right. We need more order. Less efficiency.
More minutes.
Where's Meg when we need her?
Yeah, we need to do a podcast on beta males someday.
That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
Are there males after that, or is it just the two categories, the alpha and the beta?
There's alpha and there's beta.
Yeah. I'm sure in nature there's all sorts of different types, but I don't think they would know the Greek alphabet, so they would probably they got a pecking order, right? Or a chomping order if you're wolves.
Right, I'm thinking, is there something worse than a beta male? Like, can you get lower than that?
You could be a simp. That's a new word I've heard.
What is that? Simp?
A simp. It's just a really, really beta guy, you know.
Well, that probably comes from simpering, which kind of means like
that's
bedraggled and
that's probably it.
Malnourished.
Yeah. Here I was thinking it was just an internet slang word, and nope.
Huh.
The internet actually came up with something legitimate there. Well, we're back, and we are going to talk about the hot topic of the day. I wish we didn't have to keep talking about these hot topics, and we could do, maybe some more edifying stuff. But we're talking about vaccine mandates, passports, all that, all this new stuff that's entered into our vocabulary. And I'm going to let Alex kick this off for us.
Yeah, well, I would say it is edifying. The reason it's edifying is because it is a challenge and a crisis and a conflict that most people in our church are in. So it's not picking some just some hot topic we found on the internet. It's one of the most invasive public policies, if not the most invasive public policy our country has ever seen. And by invasive, I mean people are losing their jobs. People can't go to school.
Right.
People are being coerced into submitting to medical procedures. So Christians need to think through what is our duty in thinking through these coercive methods for ourselves. But I would say, what is our duty in advocating for others? And vaccine passports are just a wicked policy. They're unbiblical and they're evil. They are a moral inversion, which we'll talk about, and they pervert justice, and they don't accomplish what they claim to accomplish.
Right.
As far as health and safety are concerned,
right.
They are a total lie as well.
Right.
So. Yeah, it's a lot of, I personally as a pastor had so many people reach out to me to advise them, to counsel them, to pray for them, to write a religious exemption letter. Some people have the privilege of not having to be confronted with this. You may work for your own company, or your company's not going through. Most businesses at this point are. But the majority of Canadians, and certainly a lot of people in our circles, are having to wrestle with these things. But not because we're deciding to focus on, these things, but because it's being forced upon us.
Right.
So the first thing before we talk about the actual vaccine passport, which is, I should clarify for anyone who's lived under a rock, and
this is a Canadian policy.
This is a Canadian policy. They've been I believe they've implemented it to a degree in the United States as well. But in Canada, what it is a coercive means of getting people to get a vaccine, and that is the stated purpose of them. as well. That's not even a veiled. It's not a veiled attempt to do that. It's not an inference that I am drawing from.
Right.
Although you can tell when you look at it.
Stated goals.
It's a stated goal.
Yeah.
Is to get more people to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
The way they're getting them to do that is by making vaccination a requirement of employment and schooling,
right,
as well as attending non-essential businesses. So if you want to go to a restaurant, if you want to go to a gym, various things, you need to show proof of vaccination.
Right. And a lot of businesses are going beyond the well, it's not even legislation. They're going beyond the regulations.
Yes.
Right, which is not something the government's asked people to do, but I think there's just a fear there. So, for instance, I work for a company that we have a lot of service technicians that go into businesses to do work. And the first day that the passports went into effect, a number of our technicians were refused entry into locations to do work. But there's nothing in the regulations that say, in fact, there's an explicit exemption for people going in to do work. So we're also seeing businesses going above and beyond.
Right.
Which we've seen right from the beginning. Masks and endless sanitization and invasion of privacy. Yeah, it's all about the signaling that you are COVID aware, right?
Yeah.
In exhaustive ways.
It's like, it'd be a shame if something were to happen to your business.
Yeah.
No, we're good. We're doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to step back from this particular policy before we get into it, because I believe that a lot of people, including the majority of Christians in this country, not because I've spoken with all of them, but because this is what I've read from a lot of them. And the fact is, a lot of Christians have shown through their actions or inactions that they would affirm this argument. I want to talk about the argument that people have made up to this point for obeying the government. And I want to consider this argument and show how it is perfectly consistent for the government now to be implementing an even more invasive and restrictive policy that violates, in a more obvious way, people's dignity and rights. It's entirely consistent based on the argument Christians have been using this whole time to go along with that.
Right.
And we shouldn't do that. So if you were to talk to, a lot of Christians in Canada, they'd say something like, all matters of public safety are the exclusive responsibility of the state over which they do have authority. So, no, they can't tell me what songs to sing. They can't regulate worship, but God has given them total or absolute or the highest authority over issues related to public safety. And because COVID is a matter of public safety, we have to submit to what they say. God has also told us that we ought to submit to the government, right? So if you put these things together, if God has said the government's responsible for public safety and God has told us to submit to the government, then if they say it's a matter of public safety, then we ought to do what they say. And it should be obvious, and it's sad that it hasn't been, that this is a really bad idea on several grounds. For one, if we kind of dissect this and pick this apart, nowhere in Scripture does God actually give the government sole or exclusive responsibility over public safety. Yeah. What we're told in Romans 13 and other texts is that the government has responsibility to bear the sword, to punish evil, and to reward the good.
That's right.
So they and they alone have judicial responsibility to punish evil. And that's why Christians don't, if someone does something wrong or criminal, we would call the police. That we wouldn't hold a trial in our church and convict someone and put them in church jail or something like that. We don't believe God has delegated that authority to the church. We don't believe God has delegated that authority to individuals, that he has ordained that is the role of the state. A lot of Christians make the category mistake to take punish evil and reward good to mean anything related to the safety of its citizens. Or on the flip side of that, anything that poses a risk to someone is the responsibility of the state to govern, regulate, legislate, coerce type of thing. Mm-hmm. No, the Bible doesn't say that. It is a logical fallacy. Although we might say punish evil and reward good could fall under the umbrella of public safety, it doesn't mean that public safety is reduced to those things.
Right. I mean, we have categories for like reckless endangerment.
Yeah.
Things like that. That would fall under that category of punishing evil.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a situation where maybe you are recklessly endangering somebody's safety or their life.
Yes. Well, and another huge danger is, what is public safety?
Right.
And this is where you get into a huge problem.
Well, especially if we let them define it, which they're doing right now.
And they're doing that in Canada. So not just with COVID, but currently in the legislation, if you read through Bill C6 and is it C13, speech, the language they use surrounding our speech is safety and harm.
Because
those words are used.
Because we have this precedent now.
Yeah, because our words are dangerous.
Yeah.
And so now, if that's true, then technically our words are a matter of public safety. And by technically, I mean technically and potentially legally.
Yeah.
And from what I'm told, that's inevitable.
It's already happening.
And when you leave the anchor of definition, that's what you get. You just get these huge nets. Now safety encompasses words, and there's been discussion about lockdowns for climate, because that's a safety thing too, right? It just when you leave the shore of agreed upon definition that's come about from discussion, you're just in no man's land, and power ultimately gets determined definition now. So
the Bible doesn't give the government authority over public safety. That's a junk drawer term. Second, it's like, okay, what is there? It's this illusion that there are matters that can be confined to public safety. Or another way of putting it is, I'll say this: is there any human endeavor that does not in some way pose a risk to other people?
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so if we say that the government has responsibility, exclusive or absolute authority over matters of public safety, which we are obligated by God to submit to, there is no human endeavor, none, under the sun, which they do not have rightful claim to. None.
Right, but
because parenting and teaching and friendship and working and driving and creating music and anything that you can think of in some way poses a risk to other people.
But they would never take it that far. I mean, you hear this argument, right? It's like there's this assumption that we all have this line in the sand that we're not going to cross.
Yes.
But we've seen very rapidly how the line keeps moving and getting pushed back.
But even that is okay. So you're changing your principles now.
Yeah.
So now you need to admit, you're like, whoa. We not all matters of public safety. Yeah. It's only ones that are a certain threshold of risk. Okay, let's talk about that. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's use that principle then. Precisely where is the risk threshold? Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely where is that point which it's my responsibility and my authority to govern the risks that I take. Yeah. And it's morally wrong for you to impose on me. And precisely where does that get inverted to it's actually your responsibility and your authority to impose on me restrictions so that I don't pose a risk from someone. Exactly what is that? And how do we measure that exactly?
You might be surprised, but I haven't heard anybody define that yet.
No, and no one,
and they never will.
No, and the government hasn't even defined that.
No, and that's to their benefit because then you have some kind of line to hold them accountable with.
Yeah. Right? So what is risk now? So now we're not even talking about hospitalizations or deaths. It's only cases.
Yep.
And even there, it's like, okay, but where are the risks with this? Well, Stats Canada released their data several weeks ago, and the average age in Canada is 86. death from COVID. The average age in Canada is 86.
Higher than the average death.
It's like, where is the risk? We need to help out that. But anyways, this idea that public safety is a responsibility of the government and that they have the right to mitigate all risk in society is an unbiblical and actually a very harmful and very idolatrous idea.
Yeah.
Because only God has the capacity to do that.
Right. And the reason we've been so susceptible to this is because we accepted this principle in smaller areas.
Yes. This is why I'm bringing it up.
For so long.
Yes.
Right? We've let the government into so many little places.
Yes.
For so long.
Because of safety.
Because of safety, whether it's workplace enforcement.
Even on the cup of coffee you get at McDonald's, where you got warning labels all over it not to burn your hands.
Yeah.
Like that's government babying its citizens. Right?
And we've been doing that for generations.
Yes.
And there's two major problems with this. And one is that actually God has left the responsibility for the safety of a culture up to everyone. Mm-hmm. And he's delegated specific responsibilities and corresponding authority to different groups. Individuals have a responsibility over how they govern themselves and how they relate to their neighbor. Families have a responsibility for their protection and provision for their spouse and children and how they relate to each other. Churches have a responsibility for the spiritual well-being and good of their people, which then impacts how they relate to their neighbors in culture. And government has a responsibility in how they govern and exercise the sword in a judicial sense to protect and to punish and to restrain evil. And all of these groups that God has ordained ought to work together to mitigate risk and for the public good and safety. The public safety, no one person or group has the capacity to deal with safety, right? Even if we granted that's a category.
Yeah, and this is the idolatry you're talking about.
And this is the idolatry, and it's when we ascribe to a person or a group that which can only be ascribed to God. The government or the church or the family, whoever it is, cannot provide you with absolute safety. And that's the second presupposition people have accepted, that it is possible to live risk-free, and therefore there is a moral obligation to alleviate risks. But if you don't accept the first premise, if you acknowledge that the world is a dangerous place, that it is not possible to alleviate risk, then there's no category. But this is the evil thing about the stay home, stay safe thing. If you can keep people safe, then you ought to. But this is a lie. Lockdowns are a great example of this. Look at in their attempt to stop one risk at the exclusion of everything else. In Quebec, before 2025, over 8,000 people will die of cancer that didn't have to. In the UK, in the next 5 years, they think that 10,000 people will die from cancer that didn't have to, and are as a direct consequence of the lockdown policies.
That's only one side effect.
One side effect.
There are others.
There are more overdoses in many regions of this country than there are COVID deaths as a direct result of the hopelessness and despair and isolation that people have faced. 190 million people thrust into abject poverty around the globe. You want to talk about medical? How many people aren't getting their tetanus shots around the globe? Like the huge number of children are not getting the vaccines that are proven to be safe and helpful and have done a great good. They're not doing those anymore. So it's like you've perpetuated this illusion, this godlike claim that I can keep everyone safe, and you have failed completely and you have caused great harm. And a part of that, the danger is as well is not just that we ascribe it to them, is that we abdicate it.
Yes.
It's like, what if you have a responsibility over your life? What if the church has a responsibility over the people in its care? What if a family has responsibility over its children? I had someone message me today and say anecdotally, their friend told them the story. They were at a somewhere where I think a Shoppers or something, and the teenager in front had a reaction, adverse reaction, and they had to be carried out, so to speak. And the girl behind him, a young girl, teenager, I'm assuming over 12 because you need to be, didn't want to go through with it. And the mom's like, don't worry, it's totally okay.
I just
saw that person get carried away. And it's the cognitive dissonance, and the abdication of a parental responsibility and saying we can trust the God of the state. Caesar loves us and will only do good to us.
I've heard so many people just say, there are side effects and possibilities, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
And people, we're not even weighing in on the look, you can make a decision to get this or not get this.
Yeah.
We're talking about the actual coercive method. So we can wrap this up, but we need to step back and say, look, if you grant that any matter of public safety, the state has responsibility to do what they need to do, including use coercive means. Yeah, of course. Now, not only do they think they can shut your church down, they think they can tell you to get a medical procedure. That's perfectly consistent. Mm-hmm. And you've just been affirming that for 18 months. So we need to go back and say, this is why. When we talked about masks, when we talked about distancing and regulating our worship, we weren't just being sticklers. We weren't just being, unwilling to listen and to learn and to work with people. It's that if you grant this principle, this is where it goes. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first place to start. It's that this is wrong because vaccine passports deny the God-given responsibility and authority of individuals to make decisions concerning their own health.
Yeah.
And no, because those decisions may impact others does not mean that they can't make those decisions. That's collectivist thinking. And that is antithetical to Scripture. It's such a hypocrisy that these same people are still driving.
Yeah.
Where thousands of people every year die on the road from your decisions. And no one seems to think we should just all stop driving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're all willing to take that risk for the benefits that it brings.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the first step of the argument there. What else? I mean, we've got sort of that overarching...
Yeah, that's more issue. Saying this is what people give as a justification for these things, and it's just totally bogus from the get-go.
And it betrays that we have we've lost the understanding of specific spheres and when specific spheres of responsibility. And when you no longer have that, when you no longer know what your responsibility is, then you're just willing to abdicate it to the one with the highest power or the most number, right?
Yes. So we want to affirm as Christians that individuals, that our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, and whatever else that means, as image bearers of God, we have inherent dignity and worth. And as we've talked about Genesis 1 and 2, responsibility. Human individuals, and this is a fruit of Christianity and an understanding of the West for a long time, have inherent dignity and worth and corresponding responsibility and authority. And it is not the government's right or responsibility, and they do not possess authority to mandate medical procedures. And when you allow them to do that, you do something, you actually contradict the Bible's teaching about the nature of humanity. This is not a little thing. This is not like... It's a big problem because the vaccines are dangerous. No. It's even worse than that. It's a total dehumanization of people, a denial of their rights. Families have a responsibility, a primary responsibility over their children. This is a huge cultural war going on right now. The government doesn't believe that.
No.
The government, I heard someone say recently, public schools, we don't have public schools, we have state schools.
Yeah.
Like the public stopped being involved in the education of their children a long time ago. And
this is one of the reasons it's hard to get through to people on this, especially believers, is because if you walk this out and push it into the corners, so to speak, every aspect of Canadian culture needs to change.
Oh, yes.
And it seems like such an overwhelming task.
Yeah.
Like I think about our unemployment system. I think about all these other things and how they're all infected with this statism where we look to the government as our father.
It's an idolatry.
It is. And it's like, well, I'm owed a job. I'm owed a paycheck. And now there's this push. I don't know if you've seen the signs around town for basic income now. And it's like, that's kind of what we have
But
now.
it's a different understanding of the world, as you're saying. Yeah. I have one on my street, and I think about that every time. As if the problem in the world is that someone isn't giving you what you're owed.
Yeah.
Not the world is radically fallen, for one, or if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat.
Yeah.
The way that God has ordained.
Man that doesn't provide for his own family is worse than an unbeliever.
And the way that you get that is not by complaining or petitioning, as if the only barrier is someone saying yes or no.
Yeah.
It's the way that we get goods in this world is sweat.
Yeah.
That's how we get it. So it's not that there's not ever a need for employment, law changes and reform in these matters. But it's actually just a pagan view of the world.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's a foundational thing. There's other reasons as well. I mean, this has represented a massive shift in our understanding of what medical ethics are.
Yes.
So informed consent in the West has been a foundation of medical ethics, at least since, I don't know the actual history, but I know Nuremberg really enshrined this.
Yeah.
Because what happened is the Nazis did a bunch of medical procedures on people who were marginalized. So the mentally and physically impaired, and gypsies and Jews and outcasts and children, everything. And one of the follow-ups to that after the war was a declaration in the Nuremberg Code that you basically need human rights dictate informed consent. What that means is, as a responsible individual, I need to be informed about the risks and the benefits and the efficacy of the proposed medical treatment, and I need to give responsible consent.
And it can't be under coercion.
And yes,
if there's any coercion,
then it cannot be consent.
Yeah.
So there's two major things that prevent informed consent right now. Informed consent does not exist in Ontario.
No.
And probably not most of the places in Canada for two reasons. One, anywhere that implements a coercive policy to encourage medical procedures has immediately removed informed consent.
Yeah. We also don't have the free flow of information.
And everything's been politicized.
Right.
Yeah. So the other thing is the College of Physicians and Surgeons has come out and threatened doctors publicly from speaking out against lockdowns. It's like, that's not that is not your area. That is a public health thing that has to do with every facet of human existence.
Yeah.
A novel political policy. Second, they're not allowed to talk about vaccines. And by that, it's like you can't question the political dogma surrounding them.
Not the medical dogma.
Not the
political dogma.
So what that means is when you go to your doctor and medical ethics requires them to inform you, in Ontario right now, as great as the person you think they are, that they are being threatened.
They would lose their job if they gave you the actual VAERS data.
That is an inherent conflict of interests. If you knew coming to me for counsel that Ben was behind a curtain with a gun pointed at me and I wasn't allowed to say certain things, would you trust my counsel? No. You might say, well, he's a good guy, well, this, well, that. It doesn't matter. If I know that you are not allowed to say certain things, I can't trust what you're going to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, so it ruins informed consent, which Canadians don't realize the sacred bond of trust between a caregiver and a care receiver is something that is not normal in the world. And it is the fruit of Christ and Christian love and mercy and compassion and human dignity being fleshed out into the corners of our culture. And it is just totally being eroded.
Well, we don't believe in human dignity.
No, we don't.
That's not a part of our worldview.
No.
You can't have human dignity when we all just crawled out of the slime and evolved from lower forms of life.
Yeah.
There's just no way to ground that there.
Yeah.
So that's going to go by the wayside.
Yeah.
Even though we all know intuitively that's incorrect.
Yes.
Look, when people are like scared to go to the hospital, like that's a problem.
Oh, it's a big problem.
Like I've talked to several people. It's just like wanting to get something checked out, but being worried about going to your doctor or to the hospital because, that established trust has been destroyed.
Well, someone just told me this week they went in for an unrelated, actually a broken bone. And the doctor all of a sudden found out they're unvaccinated and was basically threatening them and shaming them and saying that, you're the reason that children, don't have ICU beds. It's like, oh, really? There's 24-year-olds are filling up the ICU with COVID? No, you're a liar. That's actually not true. There are not 24-year-old healthy people in the intensive care units taking up beds. That is a blatant lie.
Yeah.
So medical ethics is going out the window. Informed consent does not exist. And then you get to the level of, this is just a political, by their own reasoning, this is a political tool. Mm-hmm. So, we just had this week, what was it, the Moderna one? The Ontario government now doesn't recommend for 18 to 24-year-olds. They recommend Pfizer. And on the one hand, I commend them for just being honest with evidence as they find it. This is an emergency use vaccination, which means under normal circumstances, this would not be approved for the bare fact that it has not faced sufficient testing according to the normal procedures for vaccinations. And this is just publicly stated. You won't read it in the media headlines, but that's what it is. 2023 is when they conclude one series of their testing. And
I heard a stat on, I think it's the Canadian system for vaccinations.
Yeah.
And there's the different thresholds of harm. If you get to this threshold, then they notify the patients, and if it gets to this threshold, they pull it. Like, we're so far above those numbers.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5 deaths, and they put a little scrolling ticker thing on the TV to let you know that, hey, the H1N1 vaccines killed 5 people, or whatever. And then you get to 10 people. Like, we're so far above our old standard of safety.
Well, let's hold those numbers. We'll work our way down to that.
Okay.
But let's work with the principle that when something is an emergency use approval and they have not finished the trials that are the standard for releasing a vaccine, that's just irrefutable. They haven't done that. That means that ethically, you are not able to coerce someone to go through a medical trial. You can't do that. So if it's wrong to make someone get a medical procedure without their consent, it's especially wrong to get someone to participate in a medical procedure that you can't with any integrity tell them the safety of which.
Right.
I know someone in my family whose doctor looked at them and said, so you're going to get this? And they're like, oh, well, there hasn't been any studies on pregnant women. This is like
This is a pregnant person?
Yeah, months ago. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. There's no long-term data. It's like, what was that? Why did you just recommend me to get something? And this, again, I'm not weighing in at this point on the safety or efficacy of it. I'm just simply saying nobody knows the long-term data of this. So we just need to be honest, which is why this week, one vaccine that they've been pushing on people, threatening them under the law to get, telling them is completely safe, running propaganda campaigns, taking down anything that questions it, they now come out and say it's not safe for 18 to 24-year-olds and that you should instead get this one.
Right.
Which is good that they do that, but that's why people are allowed to exercise their right of refusal.
Yeah. Anecdotally, so I got a letter from work at the end of August saying that basically mandating vaccines for employees. And so this came from our HR department. It's a bit of a bigger company, so we have an HR department. And it said the vaccines have been proven to be safe and effective,
which is a lie.
It's not even a lie. It's just nobody can say that, like you said.
Well, that's what I mean. It's a lie.
Okay, yeah, it's a lie because you don't have the authority or the foreknowledge to know that that's true.
No one knows that.
Yeah.
Apart from any side effects whatsoever, it's like you can't say something is safe before it's done testing and there's no long-term data. You can't say that.
Yeah. And it just contradicts the principles by which science operates.
Yes.
I mean, science is about testing and improving method and making mistakes and admitting you were wrong. The narrative the past 2 years has been ascribing infallibility, essentially, to science. Something that never claims. It has never claimed for itself.
It's a religious fanaticism.
It is.
It's not actually science. There's no features with the true pursuit of knowledge based on evidence and testing and hypothesis.
And no wonder so many people are having questions about it. You know, when you suddenly say that you're presuming that science functions this way. It never has before. It's not starting now.
No.
So people speak of it as if it's some type of monolithic thing, like the science says.
Yeah, you look here in the book,
and there's only one thing. It's not millions of people studying something and coming to varying conclusions.
Yeah,
and maybe refining.
Well, and that's how you arrive at good science.
Yeah.
Yes,
you sharpen certain conclusions against other conclusions and hypotheses, and you gradually, hopefully, come closer to a right answer. But that happens over time, and it happens with free inquiry and discussion.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen when one monolithic body just proclaims it to be so.
No, it's a politicization of science.
Yeah.
It's not science.
No.
And it's a dangerous thing because that same exercise of power is being used to impose those findings, quote unquote, on people. So these are all philosophical and ethical and theological reasons why vaccine passports just violate the Bible's teaching on so many things. It's an inversion of responsibility and authority. It violates we haven't even talked about our laws. It's a violation of the charter and all of these things. But the craziest thing is they're totally unnecessary by their own standards. These vaccines do not provide immunity.
They don't.
No one is claiming that.
Yeah.
The headlines are implying that, but no science is claiming, no evidence is proposing that these things provide lasting immunity. We now know definitively from worldwide data that the vaccines provide a measure of protection, depending on how generous you want to be, against severe outcomes. So to be generous, the best you can say is the current vaccines provide a measure of protection. Is it the CDC or WHO changed the definition of vaccine?
It's the WHO.
The WHO from immunity to protection. They changed the definition.
They changed the definition of herd immunity. They changed all that stuff. Yeah.
So now they're just saying a vaccine is protected. So they don't even need to provide you with what a vaccine and what everyone thinks it does is immunity. No. Now they think that the protection is actually quite limited after less than 12 months, which is why they're talking.
It decays fairly rapidly, yeah.
So, okay, it provides severe outcome. That's okay. It does not prevent transmission. So we now know as well that you can have the vaccine and you actually can still catch it and you can still end up in ICU beds, although it's a lower possibility. You transmit it.
And you can actually carry more of it in
your
more, body.
Like 200 times the viral load in your body. This is not disputed. No. These are not disputed facts. So the argument, a lot of people think, well, you need to get vaccinated because you protect other people. No. That's one thing we know the vaccine doesn't do. Whatever it does do, whatever effectiveness it has, it does not prevent viral load and viral transmission. It doesn't.
Yeah.
So then the ethical category of like, I'm doing it because I love my neighbor is totally out the window. There's no basis whatsoever for that. And it's crazy how many people think this.
And in a situation where somebody is very at risk, the vaccine could make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can visualize somebody who's in one of those high risk groups,
multiple comorbidities,
and it's for you. You're taking it for you, right? Yeah. Not for somebody else. You're taking it for yourself, and that's your right to choose that.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And to be clear, like, you're allowed to even make a stupid decision. You know what I mean? I might disagree with the risk reward of this thing, and you can still go do that
because we're not in that person's
That's part
shoes.
of a free society.
That's part of a free society. I should be allowed to take the risk because I know all of the data concerning the profile of who's risk of this. 86 is the average age of death in Canada, usually with 3 comorbidities, meaning they were going to die anyways of the condition that they are in. The average life expectancy in Canada is like 83. I know that the people below 50 who don't have comorbidities, are not at risk of this thing. It doesn't mean that it's not potential, but the flu is way more serious for children than this is. This is just clear data on this thing. So I look at the risk profile of this disease and I can make a decision for myself. I just want to read, this is from medical professionals out in Alberta. So this is doctors, nurses, and medical professionals. This is what they wrote in opposition to these mandates. The mRNA vaccines have not been proven to prevent disease uptake nor disease transmission, supported by the CDC's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, August 6, 2021, where it is stated, real-time RT-PCR CT values in specimens from 127 fully vaccinated patients were similar to those among 84 patients who were unvaccinated, not fully vaccinated, or whose vaccination status was unknown. Asymptomatic unvaccinated people have never been proven to be more infectious or transmit more disease than vaccinated individuals. The overall survival rate from COVID is approximately 99.7% and varies by age and underlying condition. The vaccine is showing weakened efficacy after only a few months. The Alberta Health Service's own data shows that currently approximately 25% of all new cases are in fully vaccinated patients, and over 18% of hospitalizations were also fully vaccinated, with percentages increases as weeks go by. So your protection wanes, and people are still even going to the ICU. The United Kingdom and Israel, 2 highly vaccinated countries, have extremely high percentages of hospitalized patients being fully vaccinated. Israel Public Health Department recently estimated the efficacy of the Pfizer vaccine has fallen to 39% against the Delta variant. And another recent study from the Mayo Clinic had numbers at 42%. Mm-hmm. That's not very effective. Now, again, make your decision. If you want 35% efficacy and that's worth a few, whatever. Historically, scientific consensus has been that natural immunity is superior to vaccine immunity. Many healthcare workers are already COVID recovered and immune. And they're still not allowing for natural immunity to be an exemption from this, which should tell you it's political. It's not based in evidence and science. As per the VAERS data, the U.S. Vaccine Injury Database, on August 27, 2021, at least 650,077 people in the U.S. have been injured and 13,911 people have died soon after the administration of the COVID vaccine. These numbers could be 10 to 100 times higher, as a Harvard study showed only 1 to 10% of all adverse events are actually recorded. The Harvard study findings are corroborated by our experience, and the vast majority of temporarily related adverse events are not being correlated and reported by healthcare workers. So here's another thing. How can your doctor tell you the risks when they don't know the risks?
Yeah.
And we know for sure in Canada, having spoken with doctors and nurses personally, I've done this, and listened to other doctors and nurses. When you go to the hospital with an adverse reaction, there is a very small likelihood that will be tied to the vaccine. There's little to no effort being done to correlate these things together. Mm-hmm. So I had someone text me today that their wife's a nurse, and in the clinic that her friend works at, they've had 7 adverse reactions this week. Myocarditis, several other things. You're not going to hear about them. They're not reporting them. And people might say, well, there's no study. That's anecdotal. It's like, okay, there's a limit to anecdotal evidence, to be sure. Anecdotes doesn't mean wrong. You can't say, talk to your doctor. How many people have told you this when you said something? Talk to a health professional. go and talk to a health professional.
So get anecdotal evidence from them.
So get anecdotal evidence from them, but not get anecdotal. So I've talked to health professionals, and they're saying that in Canada, they are being threatened against speaking against vaccines. I've personally corresponded with a doctor in British Columbia. We have personally corresponded with him, who spoke out because he had patients die immediately after getting it, and half of his work was taken away. He's no longer able to work and emerge. So how am I supposed to trust that you are going to be honest with me about the risks when I know you're not allowed to be, and they're not collecting data the way they should be?
Yeah. And we've seen the pattern of lies. We've seen the ostracization of professionals who have gone against the narrative.
Yeah.
It's like that tells you almost all you need to know.
Yeah.
When there's no free inquiry by the actual professionals, when they're not allowed to question it, then we know we're in a political situation.
Yeah.
And so why would I trust that they're going to catalog those VAERS numbers correctly?
Yeah.
Especially when our numbers are like significantly lower than other places. It's like there wouldn't be that much of a discrepancy unless we were actually under reporting those numbers.
Yeah, they're not reporting them the way they ought. And so maybe we'll wrap it up on this with the church. We made an announcement this week, but it is, just to be clear, it is churches who implement vaccine passports stand condemned. Mm-hmm. And they stand condemned because that is exactly what Paul told Peter when he practiced partiality and when he wouldn't eat with the Gentiles. Paul says he opposed him to his face for practicing hypocrisy, for preaching one thing and practicing another. And it is antithetical to the gospel to divide your church between vaccinated and unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. And it is an opposition to the gospel to prevent people based on medical status, healthy people, from getting, whether or not they're going to get a vaccination and from attending your church. That is a church that does that. They've standing condemned.
Yeah, they've turned it into a sin issue at that point. It's not a conscience issue. So if they say you have to do this to attend, then you're saying if we don't do that, it's sin, and we're not. Basically, it's an excommunication for not following the guidelines. Right?
Yeah, you are not allowed to prevent people from attending worship who God allows. Yeah. And if you want to make the biblical case that God doesn't allow unvaccinated people to come to your worship service, one, it's bigotry, but it's also just the height of privilege. It's like, so the level of threat that an unvaccinated person is to your church prohibits them from coming to church. That basically means like the majority of the world's population is not allowed by God to attend corporate worship because they don't have the medical care and the access to medical care that you have. And the conditions that they meet in are inherently risky and dangerous, and the diseases that they're all exposed to and therefore capable of transmitting in corporate worship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate like suburban privilege in the church right now. But it is, vaccine passports in the church are a functional denial of the gospel. It doesn't mean that there aren't Christians like Peter who aren't walking in hypocrisy, but they need to be told to repent.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this now is because like everything else, if we don't say right here, we're not going any further. It's just the next thing. It's the next thing. It's the next thing.
And this hasn't been mandated on us here in Ontario yet, but I know in New Brunswick, places of worship are being told by the government they have to put this in place. So it's coming. It's just a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
All right. Ben, you got any last words?
No.
Do you have anything uplifting for us?
Not at the ready.
Okay.
I'll have something for next time, maybe.
Well, I repent of calling this an unedifying discussion at the beginning. It has been edifying. It's just also sobering to think of these things, and when you put it all in perspective like that, it really should harden our resolve. So,
and the church. Well, let's end with this encouragement. The church is an amazing opportunity to shine like a city on a hill. That we can be a place that isn't gripped by fear, that isn't authoritarian, that loves and welcomes our neighbors, that doesn't treat our neighbors as threats and diseases and moral reprobates for being a risk. We can actually be a place of safety, like Jesus said, the mustard seed that grows into a tree that the birds of the air find refuge. That should be the church. And as our world descends into more hate and bigotry, The church is this beautiful bastion of truth and goodness and beauty and freedom. And I think this is a great opportunity for the church. So we ought to be that.
Amen. Well, we'll leave it at that, and we will see you next time on the Dominion Podcast.